So for the part one, it's kind of like finding your passion and knowing what you really like to do. And so like one of the things that I've learned is that passion really stems from more exposure. So it's like when you first learn something, and then you're really, really interested in it, and you go home and you research more, you look at more websites, or you find more information, like supplemental information, you tend to like that kind of topic more.
Yeah, I agree with Annabelle. And then one of the important things that you need to know is that passion can't be forced. You can't be forced to like something. And when you find something that you're truly like interested in or that you really love, then you'll just have that urge to want to keep pursuing it and keep pursuing it, which is like, it's kind of like a circle. Like your passion wants you to keep, enables you to keep doing that, and then because you keep doing that, it becomes more of your passion.
Okay, so we want to talk about classes over the summer. I know a lot of people have been doing this thing where they take like PE and health over the summer so they can take more classes during freshman year. I personally have not had that experience. I find that like most students who do it have found that it was helpful, or they were able to take a greater range of classes that they were interested in. So for them, it was something beneficial. And I found that for some other students, it's also been something that stresses them out, or they weren't able to learn like the entire class properly because they like fit this entire class within like 4 weeks over the summer, and so it's kind of tough to get to everything. And so that's kind of a personal choice, I feel like, in the end. Because if you really have an idea of where you want to go or like what you want to do, it might be a good idea to get some of those required classes taken care of over the summer. But also be careful for because some of these classes are like bases. So that you need to learn like Algebra 1 before you learn Algebra 2. And so it might not be a good idea to take some of those classes like briefly over the summer.
Yeah, I really agree. It depends on personal preference. Personally, I think that a lot of my friends have taken gym and health over the summer just to try to get ahead in their GPA and all that stuff, which I think personally is completely unnecessary. I had such a fun time in gym and health in 9th grade because you were able to make friends that necessarily weren't in some of your other classes like math or science, but you're able to have fun, like playing games in gym and learning at the same time. So I thought it was one of the best ways to meet new people in high school, especially as a freshman. So that's why I don't think you should necessarily take it over the summer. And then regarding the other classes, I've had some friends take pre-calc over the summer and go into calculus and have no problem at all. And I've had others that have really struggled in calculus because they haven't learned the basics of pre-calc completely before they went into the next level class. So you really got to consider how well you're going to learn the subject and whether that applies to yourself. Like I would never be able to learn an entire year in 4 weeks.
So as for summer activities, I didn't really do much 9th grade summer. That wasn't really something that was on my mind. I never felt that kind of pressure to go to summer camps or do science-related things. So 9th grade was kind of a wasted summer. I didn't do much. But 10th grade, I got involved in J Rising Woman. I think some of the students here have probably heard of Junior Achievement. It's kind of like a student empowering organization. It's like a worldwide thing. But there's a program called Rising Woman in our area, and it's for students or girls who are interested in business and who want kind of that experience before they decide to major or decide to focus on business. So basically, you go with a bunch of other girls from around the county, and you build a business. So you come up with a product and you sell a product, you talk to investors, things like that. And so it was very genuine. It was actually a company, and you had stocks, and you had money, and you had income, and then you had to liquidate. So that was a really amazing experience for me. I know because Cindy also did it.
Yeah, I did it. I think during my 10th grade year. So
yeah.
And if any girls are looking to get into business or even just trying different areas, different career fields, I really recommend going through Junior Achievement. Their main goal is really to better prepare students to enter the business world, and they have programs ranging from elementary school all the way up until high school. So at least for my company, like I served as vice president of supply chain, so I actually had to go and I had to talk to like different companies online to try to get the fabric, and then talk to like seamstresses to you know, hem our fabric and then iron things on them. And so it's like a very complicated process, and you actually get real world experience in doing so. So it's not just a simulation, like you actually sell product. As for my summers, my 9th grade and 10th grade summers, I think, what did I do? I went to the FBLA National Conferences, which is one of the organizations that I'm a big part of. So my freshman year, we went to Atlanta, and then my sophomore year, we went to Anaheim, California. Those were great experiences just because you were able to meet so many people from all over the world, really, and compete in whatever business thing that you liked. And honestly, a lot of the clubs that are like business clubs that may be at your schools don't necessarily like just focus on business. For example, the FBLA events, we have events ranging from like coding and programming, if you're interested in that, or financial math, to like public speaking, which is what I did freshman year. And it really helps you grow in all the different aspects that you never knew you could grow in. Junior?
Junior. So my junior year, I did internship at APL, so that's when I started. I started over the summer, and I'm continuing into this school year. And so that is really, I think, one of the main points on my college application was that internship. It was really an incredible experience. It was like mind-blowing because sometimes you learn about things in school that you can't really apply in school. So they tell you like, oh, this is a microscope. And you know, like, they're like, oh, this is how you use it, but then you never really get to use it. You never, you know, use that equipment to do something productive. And so, like, while I was at APL, like, there was so much equipment, and there was like so many like professionals around me, and it was like almost ridiculous because it was hard to believe. And so, like, at APL, I worked with lunar samples. So they were from Apollo 14, 15, 16, 17 missions. And so I was like weighing it. I was like really getting in contact with lunar soils. And at like that point, I was like, this is ridiculous because why would they let a high schooler touch something so valuable? But they really place so much trust in you, and it's like all of a sudden you're catapulted into like an adult world. Like this is a job. This is where people come every day. This is what adults do. And so that for me was the most eye-opening experience. And it wasn't necessarily, oh, I was doing so much research. It was like being in that environment with adults who treated me as an adult, and that was really special to me.
Yeah, I remember distinctly when I was a junior, it was like kind of near January or around this time when all my friends were like getting their letters back from APL, like, congratulations, you have an internship, and then here's me, like, I don't even know what APL stands for at that time, just because I'm not like the, you know, biologist, chemist, and that's not the area that I'm interested in, really. And so obviously there was pressure from like my parental units, and then also just pressure from like all my other friends, like, did you get an internship this summer, like how important they are. So even though I didn't realize it at the time, like me taking those steps to get an internship was one of the most important things, just because they really allow you to learn so much. So last summer I interned with Fluffness, which is a cotton candy company based in DC, and it's really small. It's 2-person. You know, women-run entrepreneurial company. They go around doing like weddings and events, and that was probably one of the highlights of my year. Honestly, such a great experience because one, I got to take public transportation. Like, we don't get to do that. We don't have buses. Yeah, so I got to take the metro in from College Park into DC every Monday, and I got to work from home all the other days. And you know, this is like really far from the microscope and everything inside, but I got to work personally with like our customers. I got to go to different weddings. Like I went to one in the baseball stadium in DC, and that was just amazing because we got to stay in like the suite. And it just provided so many opportunities that you wouldn't normally get as a high schooler. And I think one of the most important things about internships is that you have to go and put your foot out to get in, like to get into the door of you know, finding an internship. You don't want to rely on others. I know some of my friends, they have like different other family friends that may work in the companies, and then that's how they got theirs, and that's like a completely reasonable way to do it as well. But when you truly go out and you contact companies yourself, I feel like the result of learning with them afterwards that you get is like, okay, that's not English. Ignore that part. Basically, like the feeling that you get afterwards is a lot more rewarding. At least to me, it was, because it was like I actually went in, got this myself, and then completed it myself, like without any help. And it's one of your steps towards becoming an adult.
So talk about balance and time management. So this is not this is not something that I'm particularly good at. Like, I struggle still all the time, but it's a learning process, right? So I find that for me, it's really easy to fall into routine. So I do the same things every day, and that helps me keep track of time, helps me get things done. As for like time management on like cell phone or like getting distracted like that, I'm sure like a lot of people use this, but I do like the screen time thing on your phone where they like record you, and then like every week, by the end of the week, they'll tell you like, oh, you spent this many hours on your phone every day. And like that's like kind of eye-opening, because you don't realize when you spent so much time on your phone because you use in like really short amounts of time each time. But that's really helped me cut down, just because it's really encouraging to see like. It's really encouraging to see like that time go down every week. And sometimes what helps too is like putting your phone upside down. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like if I put it maybe like 2 feet away from me, face down, I'll forget about it sometimes. And that really helps me get on track.
For me, I was practicing these questions with a friend yesterday, and when she asked me about time management, I just kind of sat there and looked at her, and it's just because it's so different for everybody. Everybody, the way that they learn, the way that they manage their time, the way that they go about their day is so different. Like, that thing may work for you, but that doesn't work for me. And basically, every week of my life is so drastically different from the last week. Like this coming week, I'll be at school until 8 every day doing pit rehearsal for our show that has been canceled. All of our earlier rehearsals have been canceled due to snow, so that's why we're staying so late. But then like last week, I was pretty relaxed. Like, I didn't do much after school. I would go home and take a nap. So really for me, my time management is just completing the things that I need to get done before they're due. And that's technically how I manage my time. Like, if I have a paper due tomorrow, then I'll finish it before tomorrow and I'll turn it in, so that, I don't get points on. Yeah, so really, I can't follow a set schedule, just because whenever I am busy or I need to do something, I'll just do it. I won't necessarily schedule like 30 minutes for homework, 30 minutes for this thing, and then like an hour for that. I'll just take it as it comes, basically, and complete my assignments as they're assigned. So that's it.
Yeah. And I think like a large part of that is like planning ahead. So it's like, oh, if I know next week is going to be really busy and I have like a test and a quiz and an essay, like I'll do something over the weekend, or I'll do something on Friday, just to like kind of take that burden off next week.
Yeah. I also do homework during some of the classes when we're not doing stuff. It's very helpful. Like we're both aiding this year, and we just do a lot of our assignments during our aiding period, and it relaxes
so nice.
so much. Yeah. And then I guess another thing that kind of relates to like the balance and time management thing is that there's a kind of a misconception of when you're a senior, you have it easy. When you're a first semester senior, it's so hard because you're balancing all these hard courses plus writing all of your essays and doing all your applications for college, which is one of the most, I think that was when I struggled with my time the most. And what I did, I don't really recommend anybody else do, but I missed a lot of school actually, because at that point in time, I felt that going to school was just not a productive way to spend my time, which really, I don't recommend this for anybody, but I felt, because when I go to school, I would be there sitting for 8 hours, and then after school, I'd find some reason to stay after school based on any one of my clubs, and that would take up another chunk of time. I'd get home at maybe 5, be so tired, can't do any work, take a nap, it's 9. And then basically that your day is over. So what I would do when I skipped school was I'd go to Barnes & Noble, the one that just opened by the mall, and I'd sit there for about 10 to 12 hours a day just like writing and writing and writing. And then I'd go home, and then I'd take my nap and eat. And so that's just one example of how like the way you balance your time is different. And while mine maybe was not the best idea, looking back on it now, it helped me at the time, and so that's how I went about it. Yeah. Yeah, next slide.
Okay, so kind of talking about like the college interview process, I feel like I was so stressed out for the interview. Like it was actually ridiculous. Like I was shaking like hours before the interview, and it was like it was ridiculous because like when the interview came, it was like a conversation. I think like a lot of people heard this a lot. Like people tell you it's a conversation, but it's like very hard to believe. And so I was talking to like an alumni, and he went to Brown for graduate school. And so he was like in his basement in like Wisconsin, and there was like a dirt bike in the background, and it was just so casual. It was like he didn't even seem like someone who was interviewing me. It was like I was asking all the questions, and he was like answering them. And so that's really not something to worry about. It doesn't factor that much into your college application. They won't say like, oh my god, like this person didn't answer this question well during the interview, therefore they're not like qualified to go to the school. It's kind of just to make sure you're like a normal person, like you're human, you know, you're like a sociable person, you're not like, you're a hermit. So like for me was probably something that I wish I didn't stress so much about. Like it was really worth the stress that I put into it.
Mm-hmm. For me, my interviewer, she's a doctor at Johns Hopkins University, or she works at Bayview campus in the Asthma and Allergy Center. And mine was rescheduled 3 times, which at that point when I actually went into the interview, like I had just left my house. This was like, it was originally scheduled for a day at a time, and then I got there, I left early. I was about maybe 5 minutes away from our original location, and at that point, like my interview was at 5, it was like 4:30 then, so I'm like, I'm on time. I get a call from her and she's like, hey, can we actually push it back to 5:30? Keep in mind, at that point I was an hour early. So I was like, and I was also starting my first day of work that day. So I was like, really? So I was like, I called her back and I was like, can we actually reschedule? So we did, we rescheduled, and then the next time I went, all of the emails in that chain were actually really weird because it was originally me and her, and then it was me, her, and her assistant, and then it was just me and her assistant at that point. And then I leave my house. I'm about 5 minutes away from my house on the day of the interview, and I get an email, or I go check my email to get the actual location of the interview, and I see an email from her assistant saying, hey, can we actually push it back half an hour? And so I was like, okay. At that point, I was kind of done. I was like, there go my chances of, you know, even trying to get into school. But I went there, I drove up to Johns Hopkins, and I waited in a room for another half an hour for her to finish her meetings, which I completely understand because she was so busy. And then during the actual interview, it was, yeah, kind of like a conversation. It was really fun. And in the end, I actually found out that she lives in our area. So we could have, you know, scheduled a meeting at like our local bagel bin or something, but it's fine now. And yeah, it's fine now. But I see her at Katana, which is the restaurant that I work at all the time, which is pretty interesting. Overall, I think like just don't be too stressed about it. And everybody's interview experiences are so different. Like mine was different from yours. I know one of my friends who got into Stanford, his interviewer asked him to go to the gym with him. Yeah, and after the interview, he's like, I have never benched that much in my entire life. Just because he was like trying to keep up with the weights that his interviewer was doing. So it's really different, and you'll never know what you're going to expect.
Okay, so essays. So this one's tricky. So there are usually like 2 sets of essays. The first set is your Common App essay. And so that's like the essay that the Common Application sends to every school that you apply to. And so that's your like general essay. Like you don't talk about specific schools in that essay. You talk about your life, your experiences, what makes you like unique as a person. It's generally pretty cliche, I would say.
Yeah,
it's
cliche.
It's hard not to be cliche with these types of essays, because you always want to get to like a moral at the end, and usually that moral has been done.
Yeah.
And so it's okay if it's like a little cliche. Like that's not a problem. Like don't try to make it something that you're not.
Yeah.
And then the second part is like supplemental essays. So those are for each school, and they're like different for each school. I know that like Yale has like a bunch of really short responses, and they're like really hard to answer. And Brown only has 3 questions. I don't know about.
I had one essay to write, but they made it really vague. They gave you like 20 different essay topics, or you could choose your own, and then they didn't set like a word limit on anything. So
Yeah.
it was really hard to gauge.
So yeah, it's different for every school. But that is like where you really talk about why this school, why you're interested in this specific school, and what this school has to offer for you, what you can offer for it. Because essentially what people are looking for when they look at your essay is like, what can you bring to my school? You know, it's like not so much like, oh, you're a great person, let me accept you. It's like you do science, we don't have enough science people at our school, therefore we're going to accept you. So it's like filling that gap. And so if you have like unique talents, that's where you bring that out. But yeah, in general, essay writing process is a
It's a long process. That's one of the things I struggled with most, actually, just because I hated my writing. I think I wrote like about 9 different topics, and each topic had like 3 different drafts, and then I went back to my first topic. It was bad. I was writing all the way up until October 31st at like 9 p.m., when I was finally like, okay, my essay's done, I'm happy where it is right now, and then I went to submit my applications, because it was November 1st at 12 a.m. at that point. And so a lot of people you may hear the advice like, get started on your applications over the summer, and while yes, that is good advice, it didn't work for me. What's important is you think about your applications over the summer, but it's not until you actually get in like the zone of cranking out essay after essay after essay for each of the different schools you're applying to, that's when you start getting a better grasp of like what schools you want to go to, what schools you want to apply to. Like I thought I was going to apply to UVA until I started writing all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm applying to UVA. And so, yeah, just don't feel stressed if some people go up to you and be like, have you done all your essays yet during the summer? Because it varies for everybody, really. And then I know for my supplemental essay, I didn't really bring in like Harvard until the very end. I talked about my brother and like our relationship, and it was like the prompt that I used was choose your own, but I chose what's the most important relationship in your life, and so that's where I like talked about my brother. And I think the easiest way, or one of the ways that you can tackle your essays, is by telling a story, or really by showing a story, because then with the whole picture, they truly understand like who you are as a person.
And then as for like essay topics, what I found was helpful was like, I would think about it for a little while, and then I would go do something else, and I come back to it. It's not something that you can think about for hours on end and then get something productive.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that comes to you as you think about it. And so what I would do sometimes is like, if I got an idea, I'd like pull out my phone, I would write it down, I would start brainstorming, and then I'll leave it for a couple days. And then when like a new idea comes up, I'll like make a new note, and then like start brainstorming again. And then like when time comes to write the essay, it's very easy to like browse through those notes and see like what kind of thought process I had before, and then see if that's effective in the essay that I'm trying to write.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I did and then I went back to my first. I am a cake. That was my idea, if you call it.
Oh, like lyrics?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Not anymore.
So for college tours, so my case is a little bit strange because my sister, she's 6 years older than me. So when she went on college tours, I went with her. And I was in like 7th grade, I didn't know anything. I was like, oh, this is so much fun. I was like, we sat in like hour sessions. And so I didn't gain that much when I visited when I was younger. But then I went again in junior year spring break. And that was when things started to feel very real. Because all of a sudden, like, you had so many questions, and there wasn't always the chance to get them answered, and all of a sudden you were on this campus, and there were students around you, and there was like a tour guide, and they were telling you something, and you were like trying to take in the campus. So like for me, college tours really hit hard that spring break. It was kind of like everyone was telling me that it was like, oh, once you go to the school that that you're going to go to, it feels right, or like you'll know, like it's a feeling. And that was so vague, like it wasn't helpful at all. And so it was easier for me to look at like statistics or like the specialties of each school, and then take in like the campus and the environment and like what kind of college feel I wanted.
For me, I did the majority of my tours, okay, we'll retrack. So I also went on tours my junior year spring break, and we basically just did like the Ivy tour, I think down I-90 was it? Yeah, where you hit like all the Ivies in a row. And at that point, I wasn't going to apply to any of those schools. Like I wasn't going to apply to Yale, Princeton, or Harvard, because I was like, there's no way I can get in, so why even try, really? And so I had fun at those. I was like enjoying like the tours, enjoying all of the things, just because I was like, cool, it's a beautiful place, and might as well just have fun in the city as well. It was probably my junior year summer. That was when I was like pretty dead set on UPenn. I actually had been pretty dead set on UPenn since my sophomore year, because one of my role models went there, and then like I looked up to her in every way, and I basically had to do everything she did. And so at that point I was like questioning whether I actually wanted to go to UPenn or not, so my dad and I did a day trip up to Penn, and I think at that point it was me trying to convince myself that I really loved this school. And then after that I was dead set on Cornell, and I still love Cornell. It's so beautiful. If you haven't been up to Ithaca, it's amazing. But what I looked for in my college tours was kind of superficial if you think about it, but I looked for kind of the feeling of the college itself. For example, when I went to Yale, I thought it was really gray, just like gloomy. But that's kind of the way I describe it. It's like, for example, like I don't like Southern California because it's too brown, not enough trees, which is why I like the East Coast. And honestly, like the feeling that each of the colleges gave me was so different, and that if you're anything like me, maybe that'll play a part into your college decision. Also talk to some of the students on campus.
Oh, yeah.
If you get the chance, like I know Cornell offers, and you can go sit in on their classes, and that was fun. Yeah, just have fun, really.
So just some like general advice for upcoming high school students. And so like I know a lot of people in middle school are kind of like trying to find what they're interested in. But it's kind of like you can't spread yourself too thin. Like you can't do everything and expect to be good at everything. Like, that's not how time works. It doesn't allow you to do that. And so it's like if you're doing like violin and piano, and you're like going to writing class, you're taking SAT classes, you're doing all of this, but there's certain things that you don't particularly enjoy doing. Like now's the time.
Yeah.
Now's the time to let those go. And I'm like not encouraging you to drop everything, right? But it's kind of like know what you're interested in. Like really, like when you're doing something, really feel like you're gaining something out of it, and really feel like you want to do this. Like this is something that makes you happy, and it brings you joy. And if it's not something like that, then it's not worth your time. It's something you have to really like make decisions about. Like this is the time to like cut some of this out.
Yeah. My friend described it really well yesterday. She said, "Don't be a jack of all trades, but a master at none." And I think that's honestly like just good job to her. That's a good quote to listen to. You don't want to do things just to put them on your resume. Like that's not the way to look at your high school career in any way really. Just do things because you have fun doing them. Do things because you're interested in them. Don't do things because you're forced to or just because it'll look good if you're applying to colleges. And then also on the subject of resumes, don't put down things that you haven't really done. Like if you've gone to one community service event of the whole club, don't put the whole club as your #1 community service organization on your resume, because that's one, being deceitful to yourself and also to the organization as well as to the colleges. So don't lie just to make yourself look better. Yeah, it really does, because then you can't talk about anything that you really are truly passionate about. If you want to put like Songs for Seniors on your resume, go to Songs for Seniors. Like if we only have, that's one of the clubs I run, where we go to senior homes and perform. Like I've seen some of my friends' resumes where that has been their #1 and they've only come to one of the events. And I know that because I run them. I'm there every performance. And I'm like, we only have 2 performances a month for 5 months of the year. Like, you don't have to lie about that stuff. Yeah.
And so, like for current students, I think it's very difficult to get lost in like the academic side to school. And so things like grades, things like, oh, what did you get on this quiz? That's the worst. But, and so like classes, things like that. But like know when to take a break, like know when to stop. Like oftentimes, like I try to get all my homework done on Friday for the weekend because like I wake up really late on Saturday. But, and so like I'll stay up for like hours doing this one problem, and it'll be like 2 or 3, and like my brain won't be working the same anymore, and it's like by that time I should have known to stop. Because I wasn't getting anything done, it wasn't productive for me, it was taking away from my sleeping time. And so it's like, times like that, like know when to take a break, and like know, like this is it for today.
Yeah, like be in tune with your body and your mind. Yeah, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, be in tune with your body and mind. Know when you need to like, pause for a second. Know when you need to take a nap, because sometimes you just get so exhausted. Just take a nap. Know when you need to cry. Crying is always a great way to relieve stress. Like, because if you, a lot of times, especially in these competitive high schools in Howard County, you'll bottle up the stress without even realizing. Like when someone does better on you on a test, and they're the type of person that asks you, "Oh, hey, well, how'd you do on this test?" Like, it adds a lot of stress to you, even if you're not aware of it. So sometimes if you're just really feeling under the weather, just let it out and you'll feel way better afterwards. That's #1 advice.
#1 therapy.
Yeah, therapy. As for managing like you're studying, if I've been in that situation that you described, like being up until 2 or 3, doing homework at some point, and then what I've adopted is like just going to sleep at like 2 or 3, and then waking up like maybe an hour earlier, maybe like, because I wake up at 6, so I'd wake up at 5, and then you have an hour to finish what you have to do. And so because you're set on a like specific time frame, you'll work more productively. At least I'll work more productively. It's different for everybody. So that's one of the things that I do.
And then as for classes, so what I find is really helpful is like asking upperclassmen, if you're like an underclassman, or asking seniors who've taken the class, like what the class is like, what do you need to be worried about, like is it worth taking? Because sometimes it's not. And that's like advice that I kind of wish I had applied or I had listened to better, because like a lot of people, I took Physics C.
I didn't take physics.
So that was dumb.
Good at physics.
That was such a bad idea. But I talked to my teachers and I talked to like older students about it. I was like, should I take this class? And they're like, yeah, it'll be fine. But then they were like, oh, and you have to know calculus. And I was like, oh, it's fine. And I was like, I'm good at math. It'll be fine. So it wasn't fine. But that's something that, like, the people who are taking the class know a lot about the class. Like, they know more than even the teachers, right? So it's like, what they have to say should really matter. And I wish I'd listened to them better, because then I wouldn't have taken the class. But it's also, like, it was challenging, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's important to have some of those challenging classes on your schedule, not just because, like, college is looking for that, but also because, like, it's good to experience some type of, like, struggle, right? Because you want to know what that feels like before you go to college, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't handle it. It's good to know that, like, there are people who are willing to help you, and that there are resources online. You know, and worst comes to worst, you go to the teacher and ask for help. So, like, For me, it came out to be like an okay experience. It was tough class though. So.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I knew I wasn't good at physics, and I knew that in the fields that I'm interested in, I really don't need to know how fast my pencil is rolling down the desk or why it is. And so that's why, like, I didn't put myself into a situation where I would be struggling to receive a good grade, which is, like, I think one of the smarter decisions that I've made. As for other ways of choosing classes, if you really particularly love a teacher or their teaching style, like I loved my chemistry GT teacher, and so the next year I took her environmental science class versus moving on to Chem AP, which wasn't taught by her, and that was probably one of my favorite classes of high school. And so the teacher and the student dynamic is really important as well. If they offer more classes, I suggest you take them. And then also, don't feel pressured to take some classes. I know one of my friends who was talking to me, she said that she was pressured to take AP Bio because that was like the next thing after like GT Bio, and then all her friends were taking it, but she didn't do as well in it, and so that was like bringing her GPA down. And so really just don't feel pressured to take the classes that you're not interested in, and also don't be afraid to, take a step back and drop. Like for me, everybody told me aiding, or all the adults told me that aiding my senior year was not a good idea, because colleges would see that, because they see your senior year classes, and they'd be like, oh, she's not trying hard enough. That's completely false, honestly. So because I went into senior year with that mindset, I chose to take a harder schedule, really, and then I really took some classes that I didn't feel like were necessary to me, and I felt like I could learn them better in like a college setting, such as like economics, which is ironic because I want to go into business, but not like that side of business. And so I really wasn't happy in my economics class, so I dropped that and then I switched to aiding, which honestly has given me a lot more time to do stuff.